Hello, everyone. Today on the show, we are joined by Dr. Turki Faisal Al Rasheed, a Saudi entrepreneur, philanthropist, and a visionary with a passion for creating meaningful impact. He's built and led successful businesses, championed charitable causes in education, healthcare, and poverty alleviation, and played an active role in shaping forward thinking policies that drive innovation and progress in his community. Today, I'm excited to dive into his journey, his vision for change, and lessons he's picked up along the way. Dr. Turki, thank you so much for joining us. I'm honored to be speaking with you today. How are you doing today? Thank you so much.
And I'm very proud of you and happy that you are highlighting and concentrated on the main issues that face the society, which providing the basic human need and sustainability.
Thank you so much. I'm impressed by what Saudi Arabia is doing right now. You're making an impact not only on a regional level, but on the whole world. I would like to start by talking about Vision 2030, what it means to Saudi Arabia, to neighboring country, and to the rest of the world.
Well, Vision 2030 represent a transformative path for Saudi Arabia. It emphasizes on the need for authentic leadership that align society value with economic goal. It's crucial to balance religion commitment, tribal interest, and economic reality in our decision making to foster a national Saudi unity.
I've heard you say on a different podcast that it's important not to lose your heritage, your culture when opening up to the world. Why is it so important, in your opinion, Dr. Turki?
If you look at the Arab world, or if you look at any leaders in the world, he must come from three backgrounds, either from a tribe, which is a tribe could be a thought, or it could be a group, or it could be a blood relation, or he come from the academic, the thoughts, another group, or he come from business. But if he doesn't have those three supporter for him, then who is he? He cannot come from the military and said, we take a coup or will be supported a coup. And then he could say, well, I will lead a nation. It's either he have a tribe or religion or economic group behind him.
Yeah, and it is very important. Do you think Saudi leadership is aware of this currently? And did you? I was recently in Riyadh. I've noticed this pride. Young people are very proud to be Saudi, but at the same time, they're very happy to live in a country that's opening up. Do you think Saudi leaders, are aware of this, the importance of what you just mentioned
Well,
in their policies?
we have a saying that don't listen to what people say, but look what people do. The Saudi leadership have kept this country for the last 300 years, and we kept it. In fact, my fourth grandfather, when he set up as a joint with the leadership of the first Saudi government, I think that was almost in 1818 or something before that. So then he made an agreement with the ruler that is, you need the support of a tribe, you need the support of the economic, and you need the support of the religion. Then, after the Turks, through the Egyptian, they invaded Saudi Arabia. Another cousin of mine, he added a fourth dimension to this strategy, which is the balance of the regional and superpower. Because before the Egyptian invaded the central of Saudi Arabia, it is the first time in the mankind or the history that foreigners have invaded the land. So we kept that policy, religions, economic, tribe, and the strategic balance. When a superpower push you to do something, even if it's against your own interest, you have to obey. You have to follow it. Otherwise, you will lose. And this is one thing that the Arab state of the Gulf and Saudi Arabia mainly have maintained a more than 300 years uh, country together.
That's super interesting. Speaking of culture, you went to college or university in the United States of America. Was it? Did you have back then? Was it by any chance a cultural? Did you find? Did you encounter any cultural shocks? Can you tell us a little bit about your own experience back then, and whether? And also, I would like to discuss also the relationships between the United States and Saudi Arabia and whether they are important. But let's start with your.
Okay, I'm glad you separated the two issues because they
Yeah,
are two.
of course.
Okay. Well, when I left Saudi Arabia, it was in August 1974. I don't know the difference between a she and a he. And, but I was lucky because I was studying engineering. So, engineering, there's a lot of number, which is you really don't need a lot of writing. So, yes, it was a culture shock and it was a bit different. Luckily, I was planning to go, I love chemistry, and I was planning to study petroleum. And I was going actually to Colorado to study at the College of Maine. And then he told me, why don't you go study agriculture? And because Saudi Arabia have decided to invest heavily into agriculture. So I went to the University of Arizona in Tucson and I studied agriculture engineering. University of Arizona is one of the top 3 universities in the world on arid land. And what many people think, it's a slogan, they always say it. Saudi Arabia have an agreement with the US oil for security. This is absolutely false. It's not true. The reality is when King Abdulaziz have met with Roosevelt, they talked about water security and then food security. They never mentioned the word oil. You know why?
Why?
What do you think, Moses?
Maybe because well, the United States already has a lot of oil. They don't care about oil from Saudi Arabia. I don't know.
Give me another guess.
I no idea.
Saudi Arabia have no right to discuss oil because they have already signed contracts for many, many years with every Aramco. And the president of the United States have no right to discuss oil because oil as a government, he cannot discuss it because already there is, a huge company. In fact, they are a government by themselves.
Yeah.
They are the one who contracted the oil. And the Saudi relationship with the US, it started on business to business. It started with companies. So
Who came up with this then? Who came up with this oil for security then? Like, why did you even mention?
a nice lie, and then they elaborated on it, and people believe it, and then they talk about it. So the point is, I went to the University of Arizona. In fact, 1 year later, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, after that agreement, he went to Arizona, and he went to California, and he went to Texas. And oddly enough, the person who have created the Saudi agriculture strategy, it was the late Dr. Abdurrahman Al Sheikh. With King Fahd, they made the agreement that we're going to go full speed with the Saudi food security. It was unfortunate the American companies have pushed so hard and they fought so hard for Saudi not to go with food security. And they push other Arab countries to destroy their food production and their agriculture. Why? So they could control them. And now, as we could see, many Arab countries are borrowing money to pay the interest of their food. So anybody talk to you about food security, I always believe if you analyze our sample of wheat, 12% only protein, 88% is politics. So food is politics. For the last thousands of years, food being used as starvation, starving the nation to control them. Whoever have the food could control what your destination would be.
Wow, that's powerful. All right, so Saudi Arabia, why do you think is okay? Now actually I didn't read this question, but it's actually makes me all right. So contrary to what many people might think, Saudi Arabia has a big food industry or agriculture industry. Can you give us a brief, like for the past? Is there what is Saudi Arabia at planting and agriculture? What kind of Saudi Arabia have?
Look, when you talk about agriculture, you talk about the strategic crop. Strategic crop is wheat.
Wait, yeah,
You could put anything else but wheat. Wheat are the major food throughout the world. We concentrated on the wheat
yeah,
and wheat production. Then there is two major battles we have to face. The number one is the companies and country who control the food production. I think over 90% of the food of the world is owned by only 5 companies. So it's all politics. And you could see from you are from Egypt.
yeah.
The major tools to make the Egyptian on their knee is by their
Right.
food, and that's why you could see it. You are not even allowed to
Yeah.
use food there, so you are under the mercy of. In fact, when they delayed sending food to Saudi Arabia from Jeddah, they have 200,000 tons of wheat to Egypt because they don't have a storage.
Yeah.
So they are under a daily mercy of food. So the major challenge is the outside. Then the other major challenge for Saudi Arabia is water. So
Mm.
wheat need water, not as much water as other crops, but that's why you have to grow wheat based on crops, bear drops. Crops bear the water, and that's it.
That's super interesting, and you keep triggering new questions. Actually, okay. So now this actually leads us to two main questions. Why does Saudi Arabia matter to the United States of America? You know, Trump just said one of his first foreign visit is going to be to Saudi Arabia. And then the second question will be the importance of Saudi Arabia in Egypt in terms of investment. I'm not talking politics, but in terms of investment, how can the both countries work together? Let's start with the United States. Why does it matter to Trump and to the country in general?
If you look at the Saudi-US relationship, I always, whenever I give lectures or public speaking, I put the list of the things Saudi Arabia provide to the US,
Yeah.
which is a very long list. Not the least, we build all these military, we pay for it, and then we give it to them to use it for free, and then we provide them with all the services for free. And then we link the oil. I mean, let's face it, the only thing keeping the dollars up floating is the petrodollar, which we signed agreement with them for a gentleman agreement in the 70s. If it wasn't a petrodollar, dollars would collapse. Then Saudi Arabia, Saudi Arabia is sending thousands and students to the US. We supported the US everywhere. And then what the US provide to Saudi Arabia, a nice talk about national security only. So again, Saudi Arabia provided a long list, which you could check in the internet, and you could see my argument there. And then, in fact, I put it in a nice graph, which is it lists all of the things Saudi Arabia provide, and what the US provide, zero. Nice talk about national security.
Okay, so do you think does it matter to Saudi Arabia to have the president of the United States coming to visit? Will it change anything? Will Saudi Arabia's role in the region?
Look the question. What is the benefit
Yeah,
of
to the Americans. Yeah, exactly.
when President Biden came, he wanted to put Saudi Arabia as a pariah. You have to do this. You have to do this. You have to do this. Basically, we told them with a fist, hello. Basically, we told them to get lost.
Yeah, so
And then
no, not done. Yeah.
what happened? Now, the decision Saudi Arabia took, we said it loud and clear. China is the number one, our trading partner. Russia is our main ally to maintain the price of the energy. The US is a main partner for us in politics and in business. We need those three, and we kept them. And now you could see where is Putin and President Trump are coming to meet. They're going to come to meet in Saudi Arabia.
Amazing.
Right? Because we are the main partner with Russia. We are the main partner with the US. So when you know what your power is, you know your limit as well.
Yeah.
Not like the typical, talker, blah, 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 blah. But if you look at their action, it's the opposite of what they say, what they do. So Saudi Arabia have made the decision 10 years ago that we're going to go for a transformation. We did that in the 20s when the British Empire was going down and the American Empire was going up. So we played a major role on this transaction. Unfortunately, there is a very beautiful book. Is very few people read about it. It's called The Lord of the Desert. It shows how did Saudi Arabia have played a major role in descending the British Empire and rising the American empires.
Mm.
In fact, one of the things that is they did is taking down the of what is the Khediwi and the
Yeah.
military.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very interesting. So
It's documented in the book.
the desert. I'm gonna write it down.
It's in Arabic and
That's great. So what you're saying is that Arabia has decided not to put all its eggs in one basket. It's choosing carefully their allies, and now you have three major partners. You have China, you have Russia, you have the United States. I've read somewhere that Saudi Arabia has stopped or now is selling its oil in other currencies than than the dollar. Is that true, or is it just fake news?
it's not a fake news. It's not true. This
Okay.
is this is this is the road we have to take. I think we are giving Saudi Arabia own a refinery. It's in China, and we're producing about 300,000 barrels of oil. It doesn't make sense to keep selling the oil in dollar that goes to the U.S. Treasury, and then the U.S. is. Don't forget, we have enormously that law being passed in the US, which is mainly it's against Saudi Arabia and the oil producing country, which is the NOPEC deal and the JASTA deal, which they could, through their legal system, they could freeze all our assets. So
Exactly.
now we are living in a time the US is descending, and we have to go with that. Everybody knows it is descending, but we don't want it to crash. We want it to be
Soft land.
easy landing. Unfortunately, with this term, President Trump is making he's making things a lot for the crash.
You think so? That's interesting.
Well, you could, and in fact, just today, I made a comment on the about why Trump is making this all these tariffs. Unfortunately, the way I read it,
Mm.
this is not a strategy. This is a desperate It come out of a desperate move. When you are sinking financially and deteriorate strategically, the only way you could do it is through, blah, 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 and making the noise every day in the news. At the end of the day, the US is trillions of dollars in negative. They need $1 trillion to pay the interest rate. And, I think when when the empire of England have collapsed, which they buy from financial, they were over $22 billion in debts. It took them 60 years to pay it. So when you grow out of your
Means.
income and to spend, 750 military. And give you an example, the F-15 program cost $1 trillion. The road for China that's going through all these, most of the countries in the world, it costs $1 trillion. So you could see, where is the dynamic is going.
So you think it's why Trump is wants to go to Saudi Arabia? Like, what? Trying to actually understand what is the main strategic reason this visit? Is it to borrow money? But there are other countries that have money and have oil. Is it for geopolitical reasons? What's your reading of this? Why does he want to go?
Your question, what country in the world now that he could sit comfortably with Putin, and what country is Putin sitting comfortably with Trump in the war? Which one? Greenland? You think they could have a meeting in Greenland? Or where will they meet?
Yeah, Saudi Arabia. Yeah, but why is that? Because yeah, because you decided to like, what makes it so? Why did he? Why? Well, why not in Europe? Like,
You already have an answer in your head. I have to think out of the box. You're always thinking is whatever the worst mistake you could make is you think of today based on the past solution.
yep.
When you think of Trump, you think of Trump as the president of the United States. When you think of the United States, United States today is not yet United States yesterday. And Arabia yesterday is not Saudi Arabia today. We actually went head to head with the president of the United States, and he called us pariah. He will do anything to take us out. And then what happened? He got kicked out. So what we are talking about here, we're talking about we are providing. There is a three major powers, and the one power is to keep things as it is. And that's basically driven by the military industrial complex, which is promote war and promote conflicts. Then there is the second power, which is the BRICS and China and Russia. They want a soft landing for the US. And then there is a third power, which is Saudi Arabia and other countries like it. They want to promote peace, not peace based on what Netanyahu is saying. No. And his group. No. Peace means a development that bring prosperity not only to the main region of the world, which is the Middle East, but everywhere. If we look at the last 80 years, I would argue that every decision was made was basically directly or indirectly from the US.
Yep.
Now, what's the outcome? The outcome is majority of the people are lacking their basic human needs, war, conflicts, and then implemented incapable leaders to manage their own resources. Why? To satisfy the paranoia of the Israeli society. And you cannot, one of the most respected writer that I like, he wrote in the Haaretz Israeli newspaper, he said, fear and panic are fed with the milk of mother. So we believe that everybody gonna come after us, and fear will never go away. You cannot just keep killing any resistant and cut to pieces, decentralize all the countries around you. It doesn't work. It will never work.
Exactly. No, you're totally right, and that is not to say that Arabs or Muslims hate Jewish people. I think they were even like kicked out of Europe, and this for my dad, Egyptian in Egypt, he had like neighbors, Jewish neighbors. I till today I know Jewish business people who go to Saudi Arabia for business reasons. Like, nobody had, people don't hate Jews. It's just the politics of Israel is one thing. You have to separate for whoever is listening to us. These are two totally different things.
Well, if we want to discuss the emotion, then it's a different story.
Yeah, that's
Whenever you make a strategic decision, you need to have a slogan so people talk about it. Let's talk about Israel, why it was planted. It was planted because by all the major power. Two, because
device.
the strategic Middle East.
Yeah.
And then we discovered the oil. It became the main event. Unfortunately, and I've said that to many leaders of Israel,
No.
you are neglecting the fact Israel is not near Georgia or near Montana. Israel is in the Middle East. If you want to live there, you have to live with the people that in here. And then there is what they call it anti-solution. And that is by the leaders of Kissinger and all his groups since then, is
No.
no solution. Keep it going, because the more it's keep going, then the more troubles, the more conflicts, the more war machine is being built, and the more war machine it has been sold. Now arguing, well, yes, military make billions to a handful of people, especially the military industrial complex. Development, just the electricity alone and the water resources alone, that sector alone will require billions and billions of dollars. Now, which way do you want to go? A handful of people with military and conflicts, or other development? The Middle East running pretty close to 500 million people. Majority of them, they don't have the basic human need. How long do you think that can last?
It's not sustainable. And so to summarize, actually, like so far, political American politics has not benefited, have made things worse for the Middle East, but also for their own people. And the only industry that has benefited has been the military industry, if we think about it, right? Like the condition.
On a recent study, they said in case of an extreme emergency, in case of an extreme emergency, that was before Corona, that was before the pandemic, 40% cannot afford to manage $400. Majority of Americans, majority of British, majority of European countries are suffering now and struggling to put food and clothes
Sure.
on the table. You know, when we start to believe in all this nice talk and democracy and then freedom of speech, England, which is written by Gordon Brown, the Prime Minister, he wrote it I think, in The Guardian. He said, rather than we look at how many people are poor, how many people don't have clothes, they don't have food on their table, rather than we talk about poverty, the government, rather than discuss those issues, they sent a memorandum to all the news and said, don't mention the D, which is do not mention poverty is in England. So, yes, I know nobody want to talk about poverty. Nobody want to talk about the country's poverty, including the people themselves. But those facts are facts, and we need to address them.
No, exactly. And sometimes there are distractions. Like you can see, healthcare is much worse today in Europe than 20 years ago. Schools are really in bad conditions. And that's why, like last time when I went to Saudi Arabia to Riyadh a few weeks ago, I was really impressed by it. Felt like traveling in time, like going to the future. like leaving the Paris airport and going to Riyadh, I was like, wow, this is impressive. And nobody's talking about it. Like, I've created a lot of content about Saudi Arabia, about the new Saudi Arabia, the new Gulf. And sometimes people are still living in the past in the West, saying no, but Saudi Arabia, human rights, women, oppression. On that point, can you tell us about how is it to be a citizen of Saudi Arabia? What are you seeing on a daily basis? Youth, women's rights, democracies versus monarchies. Can you give us your take?
Well, you're giving me too many talks in here, so I don't know which one you want to start with. So make up your mind. Which one?
Okay. Okay, monarchies versus democracies. Some people might criticize Saudi Arabia, in terms of democracy, and they would tell, yes, they're doing well now, but still they don't have the freedom that we have in the West.
Well, that's
What is free?
that's debatable. The freedoms in the West now.
Yeah, exactly.
If we look at the governance in the Gulf, the dynamics of strategic management differ between monarchy and democracy. Yet,
Hmm.
the really measure for me, and I've contributed a book called Strategic Management in the Public Sector. The effective governance, regardless of system, hinge on transparency and public engagement. My vision for good leadership involves empowering citizens to play a role in the policy maker. So, the role of the government is to provide the basic human need, to provide good services and efficient services. When you mentioned about, let's talk about those media you're mentioning. You know, who control it? Who own it? You really think
Follow the money always.
you think there is one single news media? The only single news media that I know is making profit is the Financial Times. All the rest are losing money. When, for example, Musk, he bought for I don't know how many million, I forgot, 20 or 22 billion dollars. He bought what is it? A Twitter. Why did he buy Twitter? Because Twitter have 300 million user, and a lot of them are maker. So grabbing the power to serve his own interest. Why did he buy the Washington Post? The Washington Post, he bought it, I think, for 250 million.
That was Bezos, the Amazon guy.
The Amazon guy. And even he wrote just a few months ago, he said, nobody believe our newspaper anymore. In fact, personally, I could tell experience. The comment I'm making now in the Washington Post or New York Times or Bloomberg or the Times Magazine in London, Times newspapers of London, the comment that I write now, I didn't even dream to have written it before. And now they even ask you to write it for them. Why? Because of the magic. What is the magic? The social media and it's the relationship. The reason, now you are talking to me on this channel, we're talking here, because there is something called, you are as an Egyptian, I remind you of your Prophet Moses.
Yeah.
Prophet Moses, what he did, they have a big magic, which is, magic to Harun and Nas,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
everybody, with the magic.
Yeah.
And then what happened? He brought his stick and he find out it's all about magic.
Yep.
What is the stick of Moses? For me, the stick of Moses is the TikTok. The TikTok came and it was the stick of magic that absolutely
Wait out everything else.
when all the Americans are talking about TikTok is a national security, they never say why. The reality is it had full access to over 120 million, mostly young. And when Gaza and the genocide is going on in Gaza, who did see that? Who published this? You think CNN or a Twitter or Facebook? It was the TikTok. By who? By Israeli soldiers. So
By themselves.
Exactly. So TikTok for me was the stick of Moses who have shows everybody around. It's their magic that you don't talk about it.
Yeah, the word is much different now.
Exactly. Why it's different? Because even if you look at the world, if you look at all the major Western media, you know, one or two Israeli got injured, they talk about it so badly, so unhuman. But then 150,000 people got killed, nobody talk about it. And they even the wordings, يميعون الكلمات, which is they make it softer, they make it, but when it's come to the other, they make it very harsh.
Yeah,
But same as Moses. Moses, he said, bring all the magician, and it would be in the Yom Al Eid, in like everybody gather. What happened? It's in front of everybody. It is the stick here. So it was a big blowout. So for me, Yom Al Eid, Yom Al Jamr, it was Gaza.
now
And the stick of Moses, it was the.
that's very interesting. How can Saudi Arabia take advantage of social media to improve its image around the world? I know Saudi Arabia is doing a great job. There's a lot of things that are going on, but still in Europe, for example, like when you turn on the TV, whenever somebody's talking about Saudi Arabia in mainstream media, bad, like they are jealously talking about bad stuff. In your opinion, does Saudi Arabia still have to focus more on improving their image in the world? Does that even matter?
Well, I could understand that. You're an Egyptian background
Yeah.
and you live in Europe. So their voices and their opinion matter so much to you. For me, who cares?
Yeah.
You know, if you want to be, if you want to show how good you are, fix yourself.
Yeah.
If we're doing good, I mean, let's face it. If you're the minute Trump have announced that he's going to meet Putin in Saudi Arabia, how many you think in the whole universe are happy with this? If you look at Europe, Europe have
You weren't invited.
no, Europe have lived for 80 years based on the trouble between Russia and America.
No.
So while they're developing in their country, the two are fighting. So they're taking full benefit of that. Do they want to see you succeed? Of course not.
There's not.
Let's go to the US. The US, they have built their own war machine on sending troops, conflict, war. Majority of Americans, do they believe, I mean, not Americans, but American special group interest, do they want you to succeed? Do they talk nicely about you? Of course not. Let's go to most of the Arab countries' leader. Would they like you to see you succeed? Of course not, because they have lived on this
Conflict.
of this struggle. Now, Saudi Arabia, when they come with this, and then people could see it. Yes, you don't expect others to talk good things about you, but you have to understand it and you have to talk about it. Because unfortunately, and we are to be blamed, Saudi Arabia for the last years, people talk all bad things about Saudi Arabia. What do Saudi Arabia do? Nothing. And then they just keep quiet. But then they go to the others, whether it's an Arab countries or a foreigner country, they talk all bad things about Saudi Arabia. What do we do? Nothing. So that philosophy have changed. Build your own system, be proud of it, and do something good. People will see it. You could talk all day long bad things about Saudi Arabia. Women driving, blah, blah, blah. It's all nice talk. But that's what the agenda is for. And don't listen to especially Arabs like yourself are in Europe because they're the minorities. And then when they see European talk things about Saudi Arabia, why don't they understand? Who cares? They do understand, but they want to hide it because we are against their own personal interests. Look what Europe now gonna do. They have two choices. Either they go to war with Russia or they go with what we want them to do is don't empower yourself against your neighbor with the foreigners. So South Europe need to make peace with the Russian. They need to make deals with the Russian. That's why they came to Saudi Arabia and to the Gulf. They tried to secure their energy.
Exactly.
They became an outside player. British, they're outside player. Every country they follow somebody else. Then they lost all their powers. Who is the leader of this? Saudi Arabia. Do you expect the people to love you? Of course not. Follow the money. It's against their own interest.
Exactly. I was talking about the image because I think it is still important for Saudi Arabia to work on its image abroad for two reasons. And of course, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Turki. I'm an outsider still. I'm thinking about Saudi Arabia wants to attract investment, foreign investment from abroad. So their image, it's important to attract the brightest, but also tourism. So yes, we don't care about what they think, but don't you think that it's still important what people might think if we want to get the best people to our country?
That's a nice talk. But let's look at reality. Saudi Arabia is the only country in the world, not a single foreigner came to Saudi Arabia unless he got paid fully and dearly.
We know that.
So when King Abdulaziz brought the Iraqi, and then he brought the Egyptian, and then he brought the Americans, or the Al Kharij Agriculture Development Project, we paid them. And one thing, we did a great job. The Minister of Finance, he did a great job back in the 30s. He registered the salary and the expense of every individual. So every foreigners came to Saudi Arabia, we paid them dearly. Now, when you said about foreigner investment, let's be realistically. Saudi Arabia and the GCC are producing about 15 million barrels a day. Their total population is about 30 million. So do they need foreigner investment? Yes, it's nice now, but it's not a must. Now let's talk about tourism. Saudi Arabia is the largest religion tourism in the world.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So capitalize on that. Does anybody have Mecca and Medina? No, they don't. So capitalize on this one here. So look at your strength. When I interviewed with people and they want to talk about foreigner investment, what does foreigner investment is? Give me your oil and I'll give you a printed money. What good is that? So
Yeah.
we need to work on our own strength. We're doing good. I am my it should be published soon by Routledge and University of California. It's the Saudi transformation. That book is an academic book. It's talk in details why Saudi Arabia succeed. How did Saudi Arabia succeed? What lesson learned for other countries to follow for Saudi Arabia?
That's very interesting. And to comment on what you just mentioned as well, we see European leaders going to Saudi Arabia. Like a few months ago, Macron, the French president, was in Saudi Arabia. I'm sure looking for investments, like going there to ask for money. We have the prime minister as well was there. But I'm trying to wrap my head around the fact that these know how important Saudi Arabia is, but yet in the local media, they pretend as if Saudi Arabia doesn't matter. So on one hand, you have the presidents going, you know, but on the other hand, locally, they still, probably
So
bad mouthing it.
you're still expecting others to talk good things about you. Reality is they're coming for our investment.
Yeah.
News media talk, but you have to follow who is the news media.
Again, yeah, you're right. Follow the money always. Yeah.
I wrote in the Washington Post, I think 5, 6 months ago, there was neck to neck between Kamala Harris and Trump.
Yeah.
And I published it in the Washington Post 5, 6 months ago. I said, if Trump win, we need a very strong media strategy because he gonna bombard us with a lot of bad talk. So far, he didn't. So far, he's in okay. But sure enough, he will do what he did before.
You think so? He might change?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because it's a distraction strategy. استكم إلهاء.
Yeah.
Distraction strategy. So we have to be ready for him legally and media-wise. Now, if Camilla Harris will fight us to the last drops. It's legal. So we need to have a very strong legal institution to fight her back everywhere, legally.
Yeah.
So you have to put yourself in a strategic position where they're going. Yes, they both are going down, no matter who president, whether Musa or Hussein or whoever.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
Uh, A country cannot sustain itself with $1 trillion interest rate.
Yeah. Well, okay. So let's zoom into how important is Saudi Arabia for us all, or for a strong Middle East, Gulf, and Egypt as well, since we were talking about Egypt in terms of military, economics, and all these things.
Egypt has to completely change the way they do business. Currently, the Egyptian government says, Abdel Nasser until today, it's all military. And military are controlling every aspect of the business, every aspect of life in Egypt. Yes, they are creating an illusion of enemy, which is called Al-Ikhwan al-Muslimin. The real enemy is poverty. The real enemy is providing human basic need to the society. You cannot run a country like this for long. And as you could see the result. The result of Egyptians are poor. Majority of Egyptians don't have the basic human need. Now, in order to develop, Saudi Arabia have created a company. This company is owned by Saudi government. Now, the company is said, okay, we'll do this. You want to do this? Fine, we'll do this project. But this project must be managed, transparent. It has to be subject to all the common good laws. Now, does that apply now? Of course not. Because if you have all military running everything and all their labor is a soldier, so how could you make any money? How could you make any business? The end result will be zero, as it is for many, many years. So we're putting a new forward strategy. Can they do it? I don't know.
Yeah.
Are they capable of doing it? I don't know.
Yet to see. What about UAE and Saudi Arabia? I've seen that the leaders.
Can't believe even when they say UAE and Saudi Arabia. UAE is 90% of their countries is foreigner. Only seven town put, and they said confederation. Saudi Arabia, you want to compare Saudi Arabia, you have to compare Saudi Arabia to Oman, Iraq, or Iran. This is when you talk about countries.
No, yeah, I'm not comparing. I'm just trying to get a sense of how important, like what's going on in the peninsula right now. Are leaders in the air right now? The different countries, are they getting together? Of is there the sense of, like, you have the EU, union? Is there a similar union that is being built, to get stronger, vis-a-vis the rest of the world, and
We are very the GCC. They speak this language, but it's when you talk about GCC, you have to make little bit of logic.
Yeah.
At GCC, there is three, which is a full country, which is Saudi Arabia and Oman, and then what you call it, there is an island country, which is Bahrain and Qatar. Then you're talking about a city-state country, which is Kuwait and somehow United Arab Emirates. So when you want to compare, there is no such thing called one fist fit all. It doesn't work.
No.
If you look at my book, which is the Public Governance Strategic Management Capability on the GCC, you could see all these 7 countries or the 6 countries or the 5 countries, they're doing a very good job. Now, it's nice to compare them here and there, but compare them to their own categories.
Yeah. Same league. They're not in the same league.
Those Bedouins, they really do a good job. We are a Bedouins, and I pray to God, my grandchildren will keep the value of the Bedouins.
What are they? The values of Bedouins.
Oh, that will take that's
Just briefly.
for you to read. But it's read to one simple word day. Be a good man.
Yeah.
Be a good man in all standard.
Keep your word.
Good man, good man in every asset. And we did kept it 300 years.
That's impressive. Iran. You mentioned Iran. Is it important for Saudi Arabia to hold talks with Iran to work on its relationship with the country?
What about you?
Yeah, we talked about. So you should compare. Is Iran important? Iran is not too far. It's very close to Saudi Arabia. Is there any currently? Is there any ties between Iran and Saudi Arabia?
Well, if you look at the outcome for the last 40 years, the conflict between Saudi Arabia and Iran, who benefits from it? Well, definitely. West. Iran is a challenge to Saudi Arabia, but it's never a threat.
Yeah.
We have to live up with that with your neighbors. There is two peoples you don't choose in life. You don't choose your neighbor, you don't choose your relative, but you have to work with them. So when we spend all these billions of dollars in weapon to fight Iranian, who benefits from it? Always follow the money. Follow the always beneficiary. The beneficiary is 5, maybe 6 companies are their headquarter in Washington, D.C.
I think the title of our episode is going to be "Follow the Money."
To understand problems, follow the money, you know who's benefit, especially in the Middle East. For the last 80 years, it's always follow the money.
Dr. Turki, can you tell your roles as a professor, as a CEO? If you were to introduce yourself to somebody who is not familiar with your work, and why are you doing? Why is media? Why are you sharing your knowledge with the world? What would you say? Why does it matter to you personally?
My life impact as a CEO, as professor, as an advisor, and authors of several books writing about national security. My role intersect to create a legacy tied to the meaningful contribution.
Yeah, an obligation.
Stage of my life, legacy about fostering a culture of growth and resilience among future leaders. For example, I was in Washington. I was giving a speech in a very major event. There was about 1,600 audience, all major decision makers there. And then when I put the list of things provided by Saudi Arabia and things provided by the US, the whole podium just explode, Ooh, what? What do you mean? And then when I came down, I said, well, let's not screen other, but tell me which one of those lists I said is not right, And then one lady after the VIB meeting, I think her father is the one who set up the Voice of America.
Wow.
She told me, how does the Saudi appreciate what we did for during the Iraq war? I said, like this, we paid for it dearly. So she screamed, but American died. I said, when you hire a contractor to do a building and some floor collapse and people die, you really say, I'm so sorry, but you really don't mean it because the insurance will pay for it. So I paid you. So you don't thank me for a service, you got paid for it dearly and fully. Actually, you even made money.
Exactly. So they didn't do it for free. They weren't volunteers. You're totally right. These are things that nobody mentioned in the mainstream media.
Yeah, how many, you are an Egyptian. How many times have you heard in Egyptian newspaper that the Saudi are financed Egypt for the last 50, 60 years? In Egypt,
No,
in Egypt.
Nobody talks.
Here in Egyptian newspapers or in the radios or in the official newspaper how much Saudi Arabia did.
Yeah. You're totally right. And this is off camera. I was telling you that it's very important for youth, for Egyptian youth nowadays, to understand that it's better to have Saudi Arabia investing and collaborating with Egypt inside Egypt than having other forces that don't share language, culture, religion with them. But unfortunately,
At the moment, it will not work because you cannot run a business model in a military environment. It has to be a business model. If it's military, military to military. No, but if you talk about an investment has to make. And there is a guideline you have to follow.
Yep.
If you cannot follow it, the end result, it will be zero. So you have to change the paradigms in order for anything to make profits.
exactly. No, you're totally right, and I feel like I'm feeling that Saudi Arabia right now it's run even as a bit as a startup. Like you're focused like KAFD, the investment organization, and they're asking for accountability. Like the BWC consulting company got fired.
There is the common law. You are, for example, I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
My expertise, food security. More than 10,000 years ago, Yusuf, alayhi salam, he set up the rules and the strategy for food security. That strategy 10,000 years ago, it still exists today. He involves the stakeholder. I have to be very close to the leader. You have to trust me. And then he have to pay them. And he have to buy from them with a very clear strategy. That is 10,000 years ago. It didn't change. It didn't have it. It's exactly the same principle. 10,000 years ago and today. If you want to do a food security or if you want to do a project, you have to follow these rules. You don't follow it, you sink. It's simple as that.
Exactly. Exactly. Don't overcharge, and the pay is over. I think some international companies think that we can charge them. They have money. We just come in and with blah blah blah, a lot of BS.
It worked for, but it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, no more free lunches.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. What's your final thoughts for Saudi leaders? Because you mentioned your about your legacy and the knowledge that you want to pass down. What are your them for business for business leaders, but also for political leaders in general? Saudi.
We look ahead. My envision is Saudi Arabia that is resilient, innovative, and a beacon of opportunity. I encourage the next generation of leader to be bold, embrace changes, engage with the world around them, be proud of their own leadership, our own samples of leadership. We don't care what others say, care about what you do. Don't try to fix yourself with all kind of makeup and think you be beautiful. Be beautiful inside. Later, people will see it. Sooner or later, TikTok and other TikTok will show it. When President or when the Secretary of State for the US and the Secretary of State of Russia, where did they sit? You could say anything you want, just put that picture alone. Where did they sit? Did they sit in Greenland or Finland or in France?
No.
They were not even invited.
No.
What does it mean they're not even invited?
That's a message too, actually.
And then the second picture will be at a bigger scale, it will be Prince Mohammed or King Salman in the center. On the right, President of America. On the left, President of Russia. It could be the other way around. But who's in the center?
MBS.
The capital, where is it in the center? The flag of Saudi Arabia. Exactly the same as the flag of Russia and the US. They came here. And that's mean a lot. Did the European beg for to be there? Of course they did. Did the Ukraine? Everybody did. But they're not allowed to the party. What does that mean?
Means a lot.
Just remind us those things.
I like that example, that image.
Show the pictures of the meeting that took place in Saudi Arabia.
Exactly. No, and just so you know, a lot of many Arabs in the diaspora were actually proud of moment. Like suddenly you have an Arab country, the country of the center of the very important country for Islam, even leading such a big meeting between the strongest, the biggest two powers in the world. That was that a lot of people like us living in the West.
Do you know what the national powers of a country?
What?
What is it? Tell.
The national powers of a country. It was, the ability to other countries. The other ones are, I don't know,
Natural resources plus
military.
capital multiplied, add them up, multiply by the will. If you don't have no will, you have nothing. And we have the will.
Yeah.
And we did it for the last 10 years. And this is what you see now is the result of the work of 10 years.
And earlier about monarchies versus democracies, and maybe that's part of monarchies can be, if they are good monarchies, can be stronger than democracies because you have a continuity of vision. It's not like every 5 years you will have a new leader, but you have people who also care.
For me, what kind of system are we talking about?
Yeah.
What is the outcome?
The
Outcome of a government. What is the role of the government? I encourage, it's okay, it's a specialized book, but I encourage the public governance and strategic management capability. It's published by Routledge. It's available in everywhere.
We'll share the link.
It's strategic management in the public sector. At the end of the day, is the outcome. What is the outcome? What are you providing as a government and as a government leader?
Yeah, that's very interesting. We'll share the link to your book. Is
I think all in Amazon. It's all available in Amazon, and I would appreciate if you could put you could put the list of white are there. It's available.
I will do. Finally, is there any question that I should have asked you that I haven't?
No, I'll ask you the question.
Okay.
Why do you think it's so important for the Saudi to try to improve their image in Europe through the controlled media?
I think it's important when I compare you were talking about the future and the past. If I look at the past, what made the United States partly what made them strong and able to attract the brightest brains was that American dream with Hollywood. So we shouldn't underestimate the importance and the importance of media in impacting in people's mindset. So it's whether you like it or not. I got drawn to Saudi Arabia, because of one podcast that I had watched about Saudi Arabia, and that made me actually book a ticket and go there. That has turned me into a big advocate for the country. So media is super important, and especially nowadays we live, with the smartphone, we live increasingly on online. So this is a new reality. So we have the physical reality, but we have another reality. So to me, it's super important, and I think by through media you can actually change things. The perception of the country is super important, but maybe I'm wrong.
It's in with you. There is a responsibility of Saudis to express themselves. That's one of the reasons when you requested a meeting and you put the main keywords for me. There is a main keyword: sustainability, food security, national security. I said immediately to my office, book me up. I'll meet with this guy because those are the issues that is close to my heart, and that's the issue that I would like to promote. Thank you very much for the meeting and wish you all the best.
Thank you so much for taking the time. I think it's very important for us to share important news coming out of Saudi Arabia, like yourself. Thank you for everything, and I really hope to maybe next time I'm in Saudi Arabia to meet you in person and maybe to record something in person even with you. A follow up maybe.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye. Take care. Bye.